Welcome back to the program. So let's talk about a couple of different things. Let's start first with Cuck Daddy, or Cuck Diddy, as I like to call him, guilty on 2 out of 5 charges. Now, let's break this down real quick, okay? So apparently, racketeering, this jury somehow didn't find him guilty of. Now, racketeering would be what? Running a criminal enterprise. He had plenty of people working for him. He was paying all these people. He was doing sex trafficking. He was doing prostitution, which thankfully at least that they found him guilty of. He was beating these people. He was intimidating them. He was, in all essence, a mob boss. And a mob boss constitutes for RICO and constitutes for, of course, racketeering. Okay? So he should have been guilty of that. Count 2, sex trafficking. Okay? Sex trafficking is very simple. He is trafficking people for sexual pleasure. He is bringing people out of state. He is flying people. There was, of course, plane records and bus records and all these different things that could prove that he was doing that. But yet, somehow, this jury didn't think that that met the threshold. Transportation to engage in prostitution, guilty. Okay, so how can you be finding someone guilty of transportation to engage in prostitution, but somehow not find them guilty for sex trafficking, which is also transportation of sex? What the hell is this jury thinking? Were they threatened? Are we going to find out later they were coerced? We already know about one of the juries saying that no matter what, he wasn't going to change his mind. They didn't say what it was, but he wasn't going to change his mind. We find out later he was 41 years old. He was Hispanic. He was married to another dude. And he was into climate change and all kinds of liberal policies and all this other stuff. And so more than likely, he was the one that was probably saying, I don't care what you say. I'm going to say that he's not guilty. And so that was a problem. Now, the judge could have stopped the deliberations, replaced him, and put an alternate in, and perhaps maybe then you would have had count 1 and count 2 of being guilty of racketeering, which he clearly was, and sex trafficking. Then count 4, again, sex trafficking, not guilty, and count 5, transportation to engage in prostitution. So again, all the receipts were there. You know, they probably shouldn't have dropped the arson charge, because there was even not only witnesses that said that he was going to do it, but he said he was going to do it. And then 2 weeks later, it happened. So why did the defense drop that? Now, I know a lot of people are saying, oh, well, James Comey's daughter was part of the prosecution and she didn't want to see him in jail. Look, I'm telling you, from the reactions that I heard, her face immediately dropped after count 1, and she glared at the jury, like shaking her head, like, how could you not see what we have just laid out for you? But you know what this does worse than anything else? It re-victimizes these people. It re-victimizes them. And not only that, but it emboldens other people to, God forbid, treat women and other people in this same fashion. Yes, he's going to go to jail, and we'll talk about that in a second. But he really should die in a prison cell. That's what he deserves. Period. End of story. So this is what happened. You have a rap mogul with, millions and millions of dollars. He was worth $1.2 billion before the trial. Now he's worth $400 million. So he did take a hit. But he should rot in a jail cell for the rest of his life. But you know what? When he goes into jail, you know what they do to abusers of women and sex traffickers? Yeah. They give him a giant-sized Tootsie Roll from Bubba and the rest of the gang. So guess what, Cuck Diddy? You're going to get what you deserve in prison. But this should have been 5 out of 5 counts. not 2 out of 5 counts. But hey, we're not on the jury. If this was done in Montana, in South Dakota, North Dakota, Idaho, pretty well, maybe not Idaho, we'll talk about that one in a second. Any of these other states, guess what? He would have been spending the rest of his life in jail. Now, he's looking at 2 charges. The 2 charges carry 10-year maximum sentences. The fact that the judge realizes that he's a risk to flight, but also a danger to society, and said, nope, you're not leaving, you're staying right in jail all the way till October, I'd say that's a positive sign. Why? Well, because now it's in the judge's hands. The jury didn't do their job the way they should have, and so now it's up to the judge. Now, could he do the maximum? I doubt it. He doesn't have a criminal record. He's never been in trouble with the law, as far as we know, right? He got off of probably having someone murdered or shooting somebody years ago, arson on a car, but no, never been arrested, right? Because I got all the money in the world for the top lawyers. So I think if you look at that, cut each one in half, 5 and 5, I think you could be looking at probably a maximum of 10 years, a minimum of 5, but I think it's going to probably be about 7. Should be 77, 777, 7,777, if you know what I mean. But I think he's going to do some time. A lot of people are saying, oh, he's just going to get off, time served. No. Not on a federal prostitution charge, okay? The law doesn't work that way. The judge is now going to decide what he's going to give the punishment, the punitive damages stage, if you will. And I don't know. I don't have a law degree, okay? I'm not a defense attorney. I'm not a prosecutor. But if I was to guess, I'm going to say 7 years. We'll see what happens. Now, the other case with Kohberger that I covered months and months and months ago, he's a coward. That's really what it is. He's a coward. He didn't want to face a firing squad, which is exactly what he should have faced in Idaho. He maliciously and cold-bloodedly murdered those 4 young college students, okay? Some of the people and the detectives said it was one of the most bloodiest scenes they have ever seen. They said there was so much blood that it was coming through the walls onto the outside of the house, okay? That's how bad it was. He viciously stalked them, premeditatedly murdered them. And because he's a coward, he decided to plead guilty because he didn't want to face the ultimate punishment, which would have been a firing squad. And shame on the Idaho prosecutors for allowing this plea deal to happen. This victimizes those 4 families over and over again. Now, I know that 2 of the 4 families said that they were fine with it, but the other 2 were not. Gonzalez and the other one. And so the reality here is, you could have said no plea deal. You could have went through the trial. You could have gotten him to, be the death penalty. And who knows, maybe if you got creative, possibly you could have put it on pay-per-view. Who knows, maybe. Put it on pay-per-view, right? Raise all the money and give it as restitution back to the families and the victims of the families. But hey, that's the Bernstein way of doing things, right? So 2 bad decisions, I'll say. And you know what it boils down to? It boils down to a desensitization to violence. Either not believing victims or just not having the heart and the care and the compassion for victims anymore. And I don't know why that is, but that's a sad state of reality for our country to be in, where we don't care about people being victimized. What do you think's going to happen if this guy goes to jail for 5 to 7 to 10 years, whatever it might be, and then gets out? You think the people that testified are going to be, sleeping comfortably? Or are they going to be sleeping comfortably now? Anyone that's gone and said anything against him? Cuck Daddy's got a lot of power. And those victims are being victimized all over again with this shorter jail sentence. Sickening. Just sickening. All right, that's my soapbox. Let's move on. So this is breaking news right now. You have the Republicans have failed to advance President Trump's big, beautiful rewrite after 4 GOP no votes. The 4 GOP no votes are Keith Self, Andrew Clyde, Victoria Sparta, Thomas Massey, and Brian Fitzpatrick. I didn't get raised on Common Core math, so that's actually 5, not 4. That's a little crazy. I don't know why the article said 4, but then I read it and it said 5. But anyway, so what's going to happen next? Well, you're going to have Big Johnson trying to corral votes. You've got Trump on the phone. You got Russ Vought on the phone. You got Stephen Miller on the phone. You got J.D. Vance on the phone. They are working the phones. This is going to be an all-nighter again. And this is how Washington works, right? Crisis, crisis, crisis. Now. This is what's going to happen. Huge tax increases. Got to do it now, right? This is how they always operate. Last minute. And somehow, miraculously, just somehow, everyone's going to fall in line, likely, by the 4th of July. Maybe not. I could be wrong, and I'll admit, I could be wrong on this one. I have heard that there are some pretty hardcore, holdouts that feel like there's not enough spending cuts, and clearly there's not enough spending cuts. There's a lot of other great things in the bill. Yes, really good things. But there's not a lot of spending cuts. And when you're $37 trillion in debt, add in unfunded liabilities, and you're close to 200 and I think when I wrote Preserving Liberty, it was $215 trillion in unfunded liabilities, and that was months ago. So I'm going to guess 218, 219, 220, $220 trillion in unfunded liabilities. $323,000 per taxpayer. It's a lot of money, folks. It's a lot of money. And we needed more spending cuts in this bill. But the Senate didn't do it. The House didn't do it. Because Congress doesn't want to do it. They have the ability, they have the will, but they won't do it. And this whole BS about 14 million people are going to die, really? No. 188 million people are going to get more money because 14 million people are stealing from the system. So the other people that are legitimate are going to get more money, okay? That's what this is all about, but of course the left is never going to tell you that. So we'll see what happens. We could wake up tomorrow and this thing could pass. But remember, it's got to pass out of committee first. Then it goes to a full vote. Okay, so we're still not near the finish line. If we were a football analogy, it's 1st and 10 on the 20-yard line. Okay, another first down. It's what, 1st and 10 again on the 10-yard line, and then from there they have a chance to score a touchdown and get this thing in front of President Trump's desk. But we're not there yet, okay? We're not there yet. So wanted to cover that. This is absolutely terrifying. I'm not going to lie. This is terrifying because we are seeing the anti-Semitism and the Jew hatred in these younger generations that if, God forbid, this type of mentality an ideology, and let's call it what it is, an ideology, and anti-Semitism is an ideology. If this ideology continues in these directions, and these are the Gen Zs, these are the young kids, they all hate Jews, the majority of them on the Democrat side. And if this continues, I'm telling you right now, if you're a Jewish American, myself, many others out there, you better definitely exercise your Second Amendment rights. That's all I'll say on that. But this video, again, Harry Enten yesterday talked about how great President Trump is doing with, of course, the Republican voters and how historically amazing things are going. And then, of course, his 95+ percentage of picking winning horses, if you will, when he endorses somebody, 95% win their primaries. Well, he's back again And, well, this is some pretty frightening stuff here. So let me crank it up a bit. And here it is.
During the primary, attacked Mamdani as being insufficiently pro-Israel. I'm not quite sure the former governor understood how much the politics have changed around this issue among Democrats. What are we talking about here? All right, who Democrats sympathize more with, Israelis or Palestinians? In 2017, the Democratic Party was a pro-Israeli party. Look at this. They sympathized with the Israelis by 13 points, more with the Israelis than the Palestinians. But look at this sea change. Now Democrats sympathize more with the Palestinians by 43 points. Oh, my God, that is a change in the margin of 56 points over the course of just 8 years. So all of a sudden, it's the pro-Palestinian position that actually reigns supreme in Democratic politics, not the Israeli position. And that is part of the reason why Mamdani was able to do so well in this primary, because those attacks over Israel, simply put, did not ring true for Democrats. They're now on the side of the Palestinians, not the Israelis.
I mean, this is a much bigger issue, specifically with Mamdani, though. I mean, an outspoken critic of Israel. He's facing continued criticism, though, for not being outspoken enough against anti-Semitism, that is for sure. But on this, what is it? Talk about Democrats and how broadly how this really is shifting.
Yeah, so, you see this among Democrats overall, right? But we know that Mamdani's base was younger voters within the Democratic Party. And so I want to break it down
with younger Democrats.
Correct. So take a look here. Who age 18 to 49 Democrats sympathize more with, the Israelis or the Palestinians? Again, in 2017, younger Democrats sympathized more with the Israelis by 14 points. Look at this shift now. Palestinians, they sympathize more with the Palestinians by 57 points. That is an over 70-point shift in the margin in just a matter of 8 years. So the bottom line is, Mamdani's base within the Democratic Party and the base of the Democratic Party of younger voters, younger Democrats, have changed tremendously on this issue in 8 years' time. I rarely ever see shifts like this, Kate, in which you see one side of the equation leading by 14 points 8 years ago, and then all of a sudden the other side of the equation leading by 57 points. The bottom line is the politics around the Israelis and the Palestinians have shifted tremendously among Democrats, and they've shifted specifically tremendously among Democrats who are under the age of 50, younger Democrats who are Mamdani's base, and also the base of Democratic socialists like himself, like Bernie Sanders, like AOC. They have just shifted more so than I think that anyone could possibly have imagined, say, 8 years ago.
Yeah.
How disgusting and sick is that? That's why I have been saying this Mamdani the commie needs to go down. He has to go down. He cannot win, because if he wins, I'm telling you right now, you're going to see Zohan the destroyers all over the country in bright blue radical leftist cities. Portland, Seattle, Chicago, New York, obviously. Vermont, Burlington, that's another one. There's so many others. San Francisco, Los Angeles. You're going to start to see the spread of these types of communist, anti-Jew mayors, council members, governors, whatever. And you know what's going to happen? Take a look at Europe, okay? I was sounding the alarm bells as far back as 2016, 2017, you all know it, about Europe and the birth replacement rate and how all these people are coming in to their countries and they're having more children and they are radical. And now you have, almost every single mayor of every major city in the UK has a Muslim mayor. Seriously. So if you want to stop it now in its tracks here in America before it spreads like Europe, guess what? We got to do opposition research. We've got to figure out how to defeat this person. We've got to drive up the negatives. And we have to have a strategy. And that strategy needs to be to get behind one person and one person only. And who cares if it's another Democrat? Eric Adams is the one that needs to win the mayorship, okay? I understand Curtis Sliwa wants to get into the race. Believe me, if Adams was out, fine. Yeah, put all the support there. But all he's going to do is split the vote. Okay? He's going to split the vote. And if he does that, God help us. Okay? God help us. I hope President Trump and his administration and his Department of Justice are seriously looking at denaturalization and getting him the hell out. Because he cannot be a mayor nor even a citizen of these great United States. Those are my thoughts. What are yours? Put them down in the comments below. We'll see you in the next one.